Hey peeps, this is Ferny, your resident psychic medium and spiritual teacher, and you're listening to Ferny Unfiltered, where we dive into topics that enlighten, inform, and entertain the soul. So let's talk about the way we grew up because, we didn't grow up together. We grew up separate, and even though I was with you when you were like 2 or 3, and then after that, mommy got sick, and then you went to go live with Theo and Thea, and then I was put with grandpa. Karina was sent off to God knows where, and then after that, when mom came out of the hospital, I was put back with mom. So you stayed living with Theo and Thea, and they love the shit out of you. I mean, they got you everything, and I think that's that's one of the reasons why I didn't like you so much when you were a kid, because I felt like you were this spoiled brat and you always had everything you wanted. And you were like, mommy, I want that toy, and they're like, okay, you'll get it. And I'm like, bitch, like I could barely get one toy. You're like, all these toys. So, you get all these toys. And then for a while we were living right next door to each other, because mommy and I were living with in the house next door, and you were in that other house, and so we would get to play together. And every now and then Karina would come around or whatever. But after that, after that change, that's when everything started to kind of go in another direction. And mom and I, we moved out. We went ahead. We were actually living with Karina and Theo Eddie for a while, but you stayed with Theo and Thea. And then at that time he was sick. He had cancer. And so you were having to deal with, how old was that? How old were you when Theo got sick?
Jeez, I think I was like between 8 and 10.
Okay. Yeah, because you were still pretty young. I mean, I remember first of all, when they told you that he had cancer, when they gave you that information, did you even comprehend what that was?
I don't even remember them telling me. The moment that really stood out was when I was asleep on Mamma Mia's floor, I want to say. Like, we were in the living room, and I remember her waking me up and telling me that Theo passed. And I think then that's when I understood, like, oh,
this is
okay.
Yeah, this is like
This
something
is really
serious.
happening. Yeah.
So after Theo passed, it was just you and Thea for a while, and she just kind of took over. And as far as we knew, they were your mom and dad, because I mean, you were so young when you went to go live with them that you don't remember mom and me, being with us. You were more like with them at that age. So they were like your mom and dad, and they were with you. I mean, you were with them forever. So after Theo passed, it was just you and Thea, Julie. And how did life seem after that?
I went through my rebellious phase, I guess. I think internally I was freaking out, and I just couldn't deal with the fact that Theo had passed.
Yeah.
So I think I started to lash out, and I was a handful for Thea. I know I was. Like, I was just completely out of control.
Yeah.
Like, I was acting up, causing all kind of conflict between Thea and I. It went downhill from there, largely because I just couldn't cope.
Yeah, I think I don't think they were expecting, or anybody was expecting, you to go into a rebellious stage, because even though you were, even as a kid, as a child, you were a handful, because you were just, you always were just, constantly doing something, or, whatever. And you always traveled around with the Anthea, going to places and stuff. So I think at that point you were just angry and mad and pissed off because it wasn't the same, Were you closer with Theo than with Thea?
I think I was.
Okay.
Like, I remember, like, memories when I was little. Like, he would watch TV at night, like late at night, and he would sit in his little recliner chair. And I had a little small reclining chair as well, so I would sit there with him and like watch TV and stuff. So yeah, I think I was closer to Theo.
Yeah.
I was pretty much like, I was a daddy's girl. Like, he would spoil me, and I would never, I would get, like you said, anything I wanted, and I felt, I felt like the apple of his eye.
Yeah, you felt like a princess. Well, I mean, I think, didn't he call you? What did he call you? He did call you princess, didn't he? He used to call you princess.
Yeah, he did. And then Thea was the queen.
The queen. Okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
So once you started to go through the rebellious stage, that's when we started to pop back into the picture, because our relationship with Theo and Thea wasn't that great before he passed, because we had a big old falling out. And then after he passed, she, still held grudges against us. So we hadn't come around for a while, and you kind of grew up many years without us really being a part of your life. And then once you started going through the rebellious stage, And this started right like so the first time I heard about you going through some issues because I had a dream, and in the dream it was Theo, and we were at Theo Tony's house, but Theo was in the living room, and he was in a deathbed pretty much. He was like in this hospital bed. He couldn't do anything for himself, and he was telling me, he said, "I need your help." And I was sitting next to him in the bed in the dream, and I said, "Okay." And then he had like shitted all over himself in the bed, and so he asked me if I could help him clean up his mess, and I was like, okay. And so then I bent him over and I started cleaning up his shit. And so when he was talking to me, I felt like he was talking to me about you in the dream, because even though he was talking about, he was showing me I needed to clean up my shit, I was like, okay. So when I woke up, I didn't understand fully because I kept thinking about you when he was telling me that in the dream, but it didn't register. And then a week later, that's when Julie called us and called mom and said that she was struggling with you and that she didn't know how to deal with what was going on, and that you were dating like a gang member, and you were starting to like experiment, and you were starting to like, your grades were going to hell, and all this thing was happening. And I was in shock, and I didn't understand that because, you were always this like, princess who had everything and who always did the good grades and got straight A's. You went to private school and all this other stuff. So it didn't make any sense for me why you would be that way when it was so easy for you. So I was like, okay. So then she didn't make it seem like she wanted you to come live with us. She just made it seem like she wanted us to help her. And so we were like, okay. And so I told her, I think it would be a good idea for you to come and stay with us, or just to come and be with us for a little while, because you had never really struggled or had gone through a lot of struggle in your life. And I think that having it easy made it easy for you to just not give a damn about anything you were doing, because everything was just solid or stable in that way. And I think she agreed with us. And so, but you were just gonna come stay for like a few days, So when you came to stay with us, then it turns out that Thea kicks you out, and like she just like comes with a trash bag of clothes and just drops it off. And at that point, that's your new reality. And that's the shit that you have to deal with. So like at that point, the rug was pulled out from underneath you, and your life is like completely 100% changed at that moment. That's huge, because not everybody would be able to go through something like that and be like, well, here I am, bitches, I have a master's degree. Like who's gonna have like their life be like okay, like even with all that support and stuff, and all of a sudden shit just gets changed. So what was that part like, going through that experience of just having that? I mean, I'm sure you probably felt betrayed by her, just because you trusted her to take care of you, to be your mom. I mean, essentially she was mom for you.
Mm-hmm. I felt like that moment, that was when the whole rejection started building into my personality. Like, I felt like, in a sense, Theo was gone. I felt like that environment was perfect. My life was perfect. And I had like this perfect dad, this perfect mom. And I felt like once Theo passed, it was kind of in a way that he just turned his back on me. It wasn't his fault, of course, right. And it's nothing that anyone could have controlled. But in a sense, I felt like life had like turned its back on me. So then when Thea was like, you know what, I can't deal with her shit anymore,
right?
And she, kicked me out. It felt like, wow, like this person turned their back on me. Now this person's turning their back on me. Like, am I that bad? Like,
right.
It was a 360. And then coming to live with you and mom, it was a change in environment. It was a change in my emotional state. I felt like reality hit me then and there. Like, this is life. This is, you're either going to sink or swim. And I felt like at that moment, probably for that first year of being with you and mom, that was tough. Like, I remember skipping school and smoking and doing all these things I wasn't supposed to. Early sex. Like, it was just, I was a hot mess. And I remember you talking to me and telling me, like, I'm not going to try to control you. And I remember you saying, you're going to learn by trial and error. If you want to go get yourself pregnant, blah, 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 and do all this stuff, then that's on you. You're going to have to dig yourself out of it. Like, I remember you telling me that. And I remember thinking, oh my God, he's giving me the freedom to do whatever I want, to, go test around and, basically just make errors. And
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, that was scary because I never had that freedom. Like Dia would always try to control me and, very strict, strict
Mm-hmm.
rules growing up. And I felt like here I am given the opportunity to do whatever the heck I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was scary, but not only that, I felt like that was the best approach, like
Mm-hmm.
you telling me, you learn by trial and error. You're going to sink or you're going to swim. So it's on you.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was really tough, but at the end of the day, I taught myself what's right and wrong. Of course, you were there guiding me, but I felt like it was an experience.
Yeah. Well,
A good, you know.
it didn't even start. I mean, and it didn't start off that simply. It didn't start off that easy because I mean, my first instinct when you moved in with us was, I mean, because and to break it down for people, like you came from like a 3-bedroom house with everything in a nice neighborhood and a nice side of town. Well, at that point, it was a nice side of town,
Yeah.
and so it was really nice, neighborhood, everything. And then you moved over to the hood with us, and we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment of a fourplex, and every few nights you'd hear a gunshot or whatever, and there was 2 beds in the bedroom, and you slept in one, mom slept in the other one. She snored up the wazoo, so she was that was a crazy. And I slept in the living room, and so you went from like this really nice lifestyle to this. All of a sudden, you're in the hood, with us, and we have foil on the windows because it keeps the heat out, So we only had one AC unit, so because you can't pay all those bills. And my first instinct when you moved in with us was like, fix her, like fix her, because if you don't fix her, she's gonna like completely, like everything's gonna end. So my first instinct was to tell you, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. And I put you on a curfew. I told you had to break up with that guy in San Antonio. Like I was going at you that way because everybody was telling me like, you need to like be tough with her, you need to tough love her, because if you don't tough love her, she's gonna go off, get pregnant, and then she's gonna be a disaster. And I was like, okay. And I tried that approach with you, and you just got like worse. And you were like, we were fighting a lot, and you were like pushing back like nobody's business. And I was like, oh shit, this isn't gonna work because this is gonna make me fucking crazy. And then I had a conversation with with God and in my head, and I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I handle this? Because I'm and I was even asking Theo, I'm like, you asked me to help you. You asked me to help with this. Like, what am I supposed to do? And they kept coming back to, let her live her life the way she chooses. She must learn on her own. Don't control her, just be her friend. All you can do is be her friend. So just offer her friendship and support whatever she decides to do for herself. But that's it. And at the time I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how are you going to just let somebody do whatever the hell they want and then they're going to make the right decision, And everybody was telling me, like Monica, like all of them were like, don't give her control. Like, let her do whatever she wants because she's going to go off and I was like, you know what? I'm going to approach this differently because this isn't going to work this other way, and I'm going to make myself crazy. And on top of that, we already had mom to deal with because she was still, more sick then than she was today, but she was still under a lot of medications. And so I had to deal with her bullshit. And then you had your stuff going on, and all of that was just too much. And I was just trying, at that time I had just started community college because I was going to go to school, and it was my first semester. And you were like, every few weekends you were having a breakdown, you were crying, you felt abandoned, you felt rejected, like you were going through all of that like aftermath. And on top of that, I'm over here trying to tell you what to do. So I think I had to follow what they were telling me, like just let her do whatever she wants. So, and it didn't make sense to me either, but I didn't have anybody telling me what to do, and I think that's where I was like, well, I didn't have nobody telling me how to live my life or what to do. I had to learn the hard way, but I learned and I was able to come out of it. So I'm like, well, let me just give her the same fucking freedom because that's the only way that this might work is to give her the control of her own life. And that worked because you did go on. I mean, it's not like life was easy after that. You still had to go from like a private school to a freaking public school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a hot mess.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only that, but a public school in the hood, nonetheless,
Yeah.
And you ain't never
Yeah.
been, even when you all lived on that side of town, you were in a nice house, you had your own room and all that other stuff. So it's just a different setup. So do you feel like, what do you think helped you through that period in your life as far as like sink or swim? Because, there were times where I thought you were going to sink and I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but you still made it. You still got through that period. Like, what do you think helped you the most during that period of your life?
let me see here. So I'm thinking like high school, like once like Stephen F. Austin High School. So I think sports helped me a little bit, just to keep me sane.
Yeah.
I think that grounded me a bit. I think what really set in was my freshman year, and I remember getting my report card, and my GPA was a 1.3. So I think at that moment, I was like, oh my God, like, this is bad. This is bad.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. And it wasn't because, I wasn't doing what I, need to do. I was skipping courses and stuff. So I think looking at my GPA, 1.3, oh my God, I think that right there scared me a bit. Like, what, like, where am I going to go from this? You know, like, so I think that moment there really scared me because I felt like I was like eavesdropping, like the other students were, saying, oh, my GPA is this, my GPA is that. And I'm like, damn, I look really dumb because I've been skipping and doing, things I'm not supposed to. And I have a 1.3 GPA. Like, this is embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
Yeah. And you, like, the kids at school, they thought you were white because you didn't look like, typical Hispanic with darker skin or whatever. So they would, like, remember, I think you were telling me, like, they would say stuff in Spanish and then I would respond and they would be like,
yeah, there was some of those instances. I think, like, in school, like high school, even probably through middle school, I don't know. I felt like I was a loner, and I felt like maybe because of life situation, I just felt like it was easier just to be alone. I had my friends here and there, but I was very much, just trying to be like to myself and stuff. I would still like partake in like, sports and stuff or whatever. But I felt like for the most part, I was a loner and kind of socially awkward. I feel like I'm still socially awkward, but yeah, I think that was kind of a defense mechanism just to kind of just close off from people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, around that time is when Mom qualified for Section 8 assistance and she got that. And then, she'd already been on disability for years because she's pretty much brain, like not awoke. But then she got the Section 8 housing thing. And then we were able to move into a 3-bedroom apartment. And that was like Christmas for us because I remember when we first moved in, I was so happy. You were so happy. We were like on the carpet and we were trying to make, what was it? Were we trying to make like snow angels on the carpet or whatever?
We were trying to
okay. We're like, oh my
angels.
God. Yeah. Because I had never lived in anything aside from that house that we lived in right next to y'all for a while. I had never been in a place that nice. And now, when we think about it, it's like, well, it's really not that nice, but it was to us at that time because it was a step up from that 1-bedroom apartment and we were all going to get our own rooms, Yeah. And
it felt like luxury. It really did. Like, it felt like, oh my God, we're moving up. Oh my God, we have this really fancy ass apartment. I mean, it did feel very nice.
And then that's when, and then that first year we got the Christmas tree. We got the big old fake Christmas tree and we decorated it and did all that. And we took those pictures where we were all hugging the tree because we never really had like a Christmas tree. Like after that you had, because you grew up with all of that, but it's been a few years where you hadn't had any of that stuff. And then you went on and you went to school, you went to college, you graduated, you went to college. And originally, what did you want to do with your life? Like before all that happened, when you were growing up, like what did you think you were going to do with your life?
My last year of high school.
Before you moved with me and Mom, before any of that stuff happened, like, and you were still with Tia and Theo, did you have an idea of what you were going to do with your life?
I don't think I did. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I did.
So then when you got with us and you were in high school, what did you think you were going to end up doing?
College was never in my plans. My senior year, I was doing the co-op thing. I don't know if you remember. I would like work part-time and then
I did that.
Go to school part-time.
Yeah.
So at that time, I thought with the co-op program, that was a lot of money. And so I felt like, oh, I don't need to go to college. I'm already making a lot of money now. What I thought was a lot of money.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I don't have to go to college. So yeah, like even my mentality senior year, I'm like, I'm not doing college. There's no need to. I'm already like balling out of control.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So what made you like reconsider that, or what made that switch for you?
Honestly, Mano, I can't remember. Like, I'm not. Oh, I do remember. So, I don't know if you remember, but when you were younger, you were very, very tech savvy. You were always making your own computers.
Mm.
And, a part of me, I wanted to be like you. Like, I
Mm.
wanted to be technical like you. So, a lot of that had to do with you. Um, a part of me was like, you know what? I want to go to school and I want to be tech savvy and all this stuff. And it was because, of how you were and
Mm.
how I admired you, I
Aw.
still do.
Aw. Well, I'll try to disappoint you often enough.
So yeah, I think
uh,
I think a lot of it came from that. Like I want to be like Nano. I want to be smart and tech savvy and know like computers and all this stuff. So I think a lot of it came from there.
well, now you're like, I mean, you got your master's in what? In business information systems? Is that what it is?
Biomedical informatics.
Biomedical informatics. So essentially IT for the medical industry, right? That's what you do.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so like you can, at this point, like you completely overcome where I was in source tech. Cause I don't understand computer code. I don't understand all of that other stuff. You do. You're like, hey, let me show you what I do. And then I remember you coming home with these damn books and all the codes in the books. And I was like, okay. And then you would type in codes and I was like, I don't know how to do all that. So you were like totally like overcoming wherever I got to, because I'm more with the physical tech part of it. I can still do some sort of basic software stuff, but it was more like just basic, and you know how to do code. And so what are you responsible for now?
So pretty much, I'm a business systems analyst,
Mm.
and the team that I'm on, we pretty much automate processes.
Mm.
We implement systems. Right now, we're implementing a really big system. So yeah, we just try to automate stuff that's through manual workflow. We try to automate as much as possible just to make it easier for business.
Mm. What is your favorite part of the job? Like with the work that you do now, like what's your favorite part of that?
I like that every day is different. So every day, like now, um, I'm doing a lot of building for the system. So
Mm.
it's a lot of just winging it. You got to learn the system. You got to essentially like break stuff to understand it. So I
Mm.
feel every day you have to figure out, well, how is this going to tie into the workflow? How is this going to make the process better? We're going from this application to like an integrated application. How are we going to make all workflows work?
Mm.
And how are we going to make it easier for the end user? And I feel like troubleshooting, it's fun for me and I enjoy it a lot. And I feel like it keeps me occupied. I feel like I'm part of, the bigger picture.
Mm.
Um, I like the troubleshooting aspect of it. I think every day is a different day and there's different challenges that comes along, and
Mm.
it keeps it interesting.
So what's the part of your job that is still a challenge for you, or you're still working on building on, as far as like your current understanding or workload?
Um, I think the biggest challenge for me, um, and I actually mentioned this to my assistant director in our one-on-one session, is that I tend to be a fly on the wall when it comes to big groups of
Mm.
people, and a lot of times I'm like thinking stuff, and I'm thinking of questions, or I know something, and I don't want to say anything because it's just there's always that idea of, well, I don't want to sound silly, or so I think the biggest challenge for me now is just learning how to just put myself out there and just say whatever's on my mind. Um, so one of my goals actually for my next annual review is to push myself when it comes to meetings
Mm.
and talk more when it comes
Mm.
to meetings. So it's been a challenge, and it's probably a challenge for me, like on a personal level, like with my friends, with Mike's, family,
Mm.
and just like meeting new people, being around new people, and it may not even be that I am, they're new people. They're just, I haven't gotten to that comfort zone yet, and it just takes me a while to open up. So
Yeah.
it's a challenge. That's another thing I admire a lot about you, Fernando, is that I can throw you in a room of people that you have no clue who they are, and probably by the end of the night, everybody and their mama wants to be your friend.
Right.
So I really admire that
Right.
about, because it's something that I struggle with, and I feel like on one-on-ones, I'm great. I will talk your ear off, but when it comes to like, once you go past that one-on-one level, it's like, oh my God, I want to say something. I don't want to, offend somebody or come off silly, and it's just it's a constant battle.
Yeah.
But I'm working on it every day, and it's a work in progress.
But and this is what I've been telling you, because you've been asking me like, what do you do, how do you do that, and I'm like, you act like it's so easy for me to just go in there and do that because I make it look easy.
You're so good.
But it's like it is not that easy. Like when I show up in an environment or in an event where there's a lot of people I don't know, I can just have random conversations about nothing, which is what I used to do for years at Starbucks. I learned how to have random conversations about nothing. However, how boring is that? Like, how much am I going to get from that experience? And so now, and this is the issue that I had with Marvin when my ex, when we were together, is that whenever we would be around friends, he would just talk about superficial stuff like, hey, how do you do your eyebrows or whatever. I would be like, so what do you want from your life? And do you feel like you're accomplishing? And what do you resent in your life? Like, I would go deep into people's lives, because for me, if I'm going to have a conversation with somebody, why have an empty, like, useless conversation? I don't want to waste my time on just nothing. I'd rather have a real deep conversation, because I feel like there's something to be gained from that. And so what I do is, instead of trying to talk about myself, because if I talk about myself, I get nervous and anxious because I feel like I'm being like examined. What I do is I start asking questions about that person, and I get them to talk about themselves. It's like that guy that was at that party, at your Christmas party, that he works with Mike, and he's a Star Trek freak, and he was Star Trek buff. And all I did was just ask him a few questions, and he was talking for the entire time, and I maybe popped in there a few seconds here and there, but he was talking and talking and talking. But it was about getting him to talk about himself, because at that point I can understand him, and then I can be like, okay, now I can talk with you, because I can tell you what who I am and what I do, whatever. So it helps me with that, but it's not easy, and it's still not easy. I mean, right before I get on a session with somebody, I still go through a lot of anxiety. I have to like, oh God, it's like, it's, I do CBD and all that shit, because it helps me to relax and calm down and bring myself back to a level of calm, so that I can have the conversation and do the work. Once I get into it, it flows really easily. So, but it's not that easy, girl. I know.
You make it look like it's easy and you're natural.
Yeah. So we started to learn. I mean, and I think this is something that I appreciate about you, is that in our families, like we supported ourselves when we were trying to reach our goals, or we were trying to achieve something. And then we started to learn. Well, first I learned about law of attraction and The Secret, watching The Secret, and all that other stuff, and positivity and all that other stuff. And then everything that I was learning, I was teaching you. And so then you were starting to learn about all that stuff as well. And so I think a lot of the success that we've achieved, or a lot of the goals that we've been able to accomplish, have been due to the fact that we've tried to look at the positive thing, or the positive spin, or trying to be optimistic, and not being bogged down by negativity, not being like completely consumed by whatever shit goes on right now, or it happens in life. And you're at home now, so you were working straight from home because of the coronavirus. And then they told y'all like a few days ago that they were going to be like trimming hours or whatever, and y'all were have to do some. And I think a lot of people are going through that right now. First of all, let's touch base on that for a second. How are you dealing with this whole being at home, working from home, not really going out, interacting with people, not really eating out as much, whatever? Like, how are you dealing with all of that?
There's pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's been great that I'm able to work from home, because a lot of people are not able to do that. Yeah. So I feel like that's a blessing right there, that I could work from essentially anywhere in the world if I wanted to. Like, if my company would allow me to, like, I could work from anywhere. Yeah. When poo-poo hits the fan. So that I'm grateful for, and I'm grateful that I'm saving money here and there. Like, I don't have to pay for gas, so I'm grateful for that. It's been hard, like I'm trying to I'm still running, like I'm still keeping to my normal routine. So I'll run 5 miles on the day, or cycle, And, you know, I feel like I find myself going outside. I'll sit on the concrete floor and I'll tell Mike, I'm gonna go outside and smell the air. So I'll go and do that.
Yeah.
I'll sit outside with the dogs and stuff. But in the morning, like when I log in, I have NPR or some kind of news, in the background, and I'm doing work. It is scary hearing about, people being laid, part of a layoff, and it's scary hearing, people being exposed to coronavirus and the things that, they're going through, and it's just scary. And I'm trying to see the positive, but I feel like a lot of people, they're going through some really tough times right now. So I feel like me,
Being positive.
saying, oh, I'm stuck at home, wah, that's not really
Right.
an issue at all.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like some people are really dealing with some hard stuff, and I'm grateful for, where I am right now. And I'm grateful that my family is safe, and I'm grateful that, Mike's family is safe. So I feel like, I'm not going to complain, because, anyone's going to be like, oh, I've been stuck at home. And yeah, I get frustrated. I'm like, I'm stuck at home. I just want to like go out and smell the air or something.
Yeah.
Occasionally I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go to the groceries. I'm going to go really fast. But, like, even then I try to like, keep myself in the house. So, but yeah, I feel like I'm grateful, and I'm not going to complain, because there's people out there that are really, really dealing with some stuff.
What do you think about these people who, like there's some guy named Sam, I think Sam Smith, or there was some singer or whatever, and they are wealthy and they have these massive houses or mansions or whatever, and then they're like breaking down like on day 2 or 3 because they haven't seen their friends, or because they're like,
I think that they need to listen to the news and see what people are actually dealing with, because it sucks. It sucks to hear, people are being laid off, businesses, it's sad. And I feel like, we're all going to get frustrated. We're all humans, everybody's in this situation where, this is the first time for a lot of people. So I feel like people, we're human. We're going to complain, that's just, that's how we are.
Yeah.
But I feel like whenever you you hear what's going on around you, it sets things into perspective of where you are compared to others. And, it makes you feel grateful.
So when I asked you a few minutes ago, when I asked you like how are you dealing with the whole situation or whatever, immediately you went to starting to talk about the positives. And that's not something that's easy for a lot of people, just to automatically try to find a positive in whatever it is that they're dealing with. Because for some people, they can't see anything positive about what's going on right now. And this is a completely overwhelming situation. But you went directly to, why are you grateful? Why are you grateful? Like, you went to that place, and that's a skill. And that's what we've talked about. That's what we've worked on for years with The Secret and being positive and trying to focus on what we can control and all that other stuff. That's something that we both really struggled to work through and to develop over years, because we know a lot of people who are just, they're whiny ginies and they complain or they bitch and moan and they're like never happy. Like, they're always upset about something. Every day is a fucking pandemic in their lives, because that's how they act. And so this is no different for them. For us, it's like, well, like when you ask me, I'm like, well, I kind of been living this way. I've been in self-quarantine for over a year now, because we moved out here, and I was only going out once a week to go to the grocery store. But for the most part, I was at home, and the only thing we would do was go walking on the trails. But, even though we're not doing that right now, but this doesn't matter, because I still have a treadmill. Some people don't have a fucking treadmill. I saw this guy on Facebook or Instagram, and he's like, okay, I guess I got to start my new workout routine. And he went up to the sink and he poured soap on the floor, a little bit of water, and then he held onto the sink, and then he started acting like he was on the treadmill because his feet were slipping. And I was like, oh my God. But, it's like some people, and so it's not easy for people to just jump into the positive. But you have some people who only try to be positive, and they only want to see things only in a positive way. They don't acknowledge the stuff that is not going well, or the stuff that's wrong, or the stuff that's, breaking down, or that's not working. And in my opinion, I think everything should be balanced. Yes, try to have a positive frame of mind, try to have a positive perspective, but at the same time, shit's still going to happen. Stuff is still going on that is not fun to go through. You can't always be positive. And like, how do you feel about that? Because, you know, I know a lot of people who are like, be positive, everybody. Every day is a blessing. Every day is a blessing. I'm like, okay, girl, I'm gonna need you to like, I don't know what you're thinking or taking, but I'm gonna need you to stop with all that bullshit. So, how do you feel about that? Like the idea of this toxic, and I call it toxic positivity because that's what it's called.
Okay, so props to the people that can actually be like that 24/7, but that's exhausting.
Yeah, isn't it exhausting? Yes, it is exhausting. Oh my God, yes.
It is. Like, I feel like, you know, even the most positive person, like, at some point you'd be like, okay, I gotta take a good ass cry because it's one of those days.
Right.
You know, like, it's great that people are trying to be positive 24/7 and stuff. That's great.
Yeah.
But I feel like at some point, I think it's okay to cry, have a good cry here and there. Or if, you know, you just gotta let it out. Because, I mean, it is exhausting. It is exhausting trying to be positive 24/7. And we're human. I don't think we're built to just be like, happy, unicorns, rainbows. Like, we're just not built that way. We have emotions, and I feel like that is very hard. Like, even like this past weekend, whenever, you know, my employer, you know, told us, you know, our hours are going to be cut, I went into like, oh God, and panic. And then I had a good cry because I don't know which way it's going to go in 5 weeks or so. So I had a good cry, and I said to Mike, are we going to be okay? I just need for you to give me a hug. You know, I gave him a hug. I cried it out. Okay, next step.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it all out. What's next? What's the action?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, you know, it's okay to cry, and it's okay to let out your emotions. Being positive 24/7, that's great and all, but it's okay to have those breakdown moments. Because at the end of that ugly ass cry, you're gonna feel better.
Yeah. Well, you've gotten really good at that ugly ass cry because, you know, over the years you've dated people, you've been in long-term relationships or long relationships, and then they ended. And I remember the very first time you went through that, you were like, I'm gonna jump off a bridge. You know, like, don't do it. And then afterwards, I was like, just jump off the bridge because I'm sick of hearing about it. You know. And so now you're like, you know, when you go through those periods in your life, you're like, you know, I just broke up with so and so, and I was like, oh man, you know, and then you're fine. Like even though you're probably upset for a day or two, like you're like, give me 3 days, you know, and then you're like, you know, you're basically in your bed, you know, eating ice cream or whatever for 2 or 3 days. And then you're like, all right, back to normal people. Let's get back to work, you know, and you're used to bouncing back that quickly. And as before, you were not used to bouncing back that quickly. It took you a long time to work through stuff. Now you're like, well, it is what it fucking is. You know, what am I going to do? Do you realize that you do that now? Like, you bounce back so fast versus when you were like younger?
I don't think I've realized that I do that, but I do know that a lot of that comes from you because I remember like the moments where like I go through a breakup or whatever the case is. You literally like tell me, like, I remember one time, Fernando, I had a nipple scare. Remember
Yep.
when I had
that
rash
doctor?
come in?
Yeah. What the hell's going on?
Cancer,
yeah.
And they sent me to MD, and I think it was a MD Anderson, the
specialist.
cancer center, and I was like freaking out. And I remember you telling me, look, cry it out, do whatever you got to do, but if this is what's going to happen, then we're going to go to the next step. And yeah. So I think a lot of that, Fernando, you taught me to just be that way. Like, okay, you know, like, when big situations happen, you're the first person I go to. You're the first person I call, or, you know, and you always give me the same advice. Look, cry it out, do what you gotta do. Now let's go into action plan.
Yeah.
This is what's gonna be the next step. So I think now it's just built in for me to be like, okay, oh my God, my world's fall apart.
Yeah.
Cry, ice cream, Snickers bars.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And then what's the next action steps?
So let's talk. The last major experience you went through, which I think was not an easy thing to go through at all, was the whole triathlon craziness. Because that was huge. That was a huge thing. And so, for people who don't know what happened, you had been training for this Ironman competition for how long?
I think I started in like June-ish of 2019. Oh shit, we're in 2020. Yeah. Oh my God, the years go. So 2019?
Yeah.
Shit. Wait.
No, you started in June 2018.
No, 2018.
Yes, you started in June 2018. Yeah.
June 2018, yeah.
And what was that training about? Like, what did you have to do for all that training?
So for the training, the ultimate goal was a half Ironman. And it was a half marathon, 1.2 swim, and 56-mile ride.
Bike
So
ride.
my training consisted of bike ride.
Yeah.
So my training consisted of cycling on the weekends, long rides. Typically, my mileage for runs increased. I think I got to comfortable to like 11 miles on the weekends. And then swimming was kind of like my hurdle. I never really swim before using technique, so I had to learn the proper technique. I had to learn breathing. That in itself was a very, very big struggle. I knew going in that was going to be my burden, the swim portion of it.
So before you did before you actually had the triathlon event, so you had to do swimming, you had to do bicycling, you had to do running. How far were you running when you were at the end of your training and you were about to start the triathlon? How far were you running every weekend?
It would vary from like maybe 11 miles, 10 miles, sometimes like 8 miles.
Yeah. So you would run 8 to 11 miles every weekend or every day?
No. On the weekends. The weekends was my long run.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were bicycling how many miles?
So at the time I was with a group. Sometimes we would do like 50 miles on the weekend.
50? 50?
50? 50.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And then with the swimming part, how far were you able to swim when you were still in the training?
So I was able to, in the pool, I would go ahead and do the oh my God, I'm having a brain fart. I would do the full mileage, 2,112 yards, 1.2 swim, 1.2 mile swim. So I was really comfortable in the pool. And then in the lake, I was not confident at all, just because I was really paranoid about alligators.
Yeah, because she was swimming with alligators in a lake. Yeah,
I was swimming at Lake Poop, and there was alligators, a baby alligator caught there. So I think, had I not known that, I would have been okay. But I think a lot of it was like I just couldn't. I couldn't keep myself calm swimming, like to practice. So yeah, I think the mileage would have been okay if I just wasn't concerned about something like grabbing me or something in the water. And then like the fish would touch you, so then that would freak me out too.
Yeah.
So I just could never just calm myself in the water.
Well, I think you in the water was the thing that I was the most scared about, because when you told me that you were having to learn how to swim, but you couldn't swim the whole thing, so you'd have to take all these breaks. And that was just in the pool. And then when you were actually going into the lake and swimming with your group still, but there was alligators in the lake and all that other stuff. When you tell me about that, like that really was too much for me, because I was like, oh my God, she's going to fucking drown. Like she's going to drown. That's it. All this work. She's built herself to all this point in her life, and then she's going to get eaten by a fucking alligator, So that's where my brain was, because it was like, oh my God, like what the hell is she, and when you had told me originally that you wanted to go and skydive, and this was like when you were almost done with your master's degree. And I was like, bitch, you're not going to go through all this just to jump out of an airplane and then have the thing not open. No, like wait till you're like a viejita and then you can skydive. Don't do it right now, because that's like, it's not unnecessary risk. So when you told me about the water thing, I remember getting off the phone with you and I was panicking, because I was like, oh my God, like I don't know, I don't really want her to drown, and I can't control the situation. And so I was freaking out in my head, because you were doing all that. And I remember I was like, I need to calm down. And I had like readings that day in the evening, and I was going to have like a bunch of mediumship, and I can't do that unless I'm calm or I'm in a right state of mind. So I was like, let me go for a walk. And I went for a walk. And I was like, okay, I got to listen to something that's going to inspire me, or listen to something that's going to just make me come to peace. And I was listening to whatever. And then I was asking God, like, oh my, I need to feel okay about this. I need to be at peace with this. And then as I was asking that in my head, a truck went by. And as the truck went by, on the license plate, it had 222. And I was like, and that was my sign. I was like, yes, perfect. And so I saw that and I was like, okay. And so I'm like, I'm good now. Because for me, that was the universal sign that, Ferny, don't worry. This is where it's supposed to be. This is exactly how it should be. Stop it. And so I was like, okay, cool. Because whenever I see my alignment sign, it says I'm exactly where I need to be right now. And that means that you are exactly where you need to be at right now. So I'm like, okay, cool. So then I took it as a universal sign. And then that in itself made me feel so much better, because I was like, okay, I trust the universe. I trust that things are going to go the way they need to. For people who don't understand what that means, because when I say I trust that things are going to go the way they need to, not everything's going to be fine, because life is not perfect and shit still happens and stuff happens all the time. And it's not about I'm going to pray or I'm going to get the sign from the universe that it's going to be perfect. It's not, that's not what I see it as. I see it as whatever it is, whatever's going on, this is meant to be. You will get through whatever you have to get through, but this is how it's supposed to be. So for me, it was basically, you may not understand what she's doing, but she needs to go through this. So let her go through this because this is going to be big for her. And I was like, okay, so I trust that this is where you needed to be in your life right now, however it played out. And yes, that meant the possibility of something happening to you. So, but I had to trust that this is out of my hands at this point. I have to honor that this is how it needs to be. So then fast forward, you do all your training. You've been working on this for a year. And I mean, just the training in itself, like and what I've told you before you even ran the marathon is like, whatever happens, I'm already proud of you because you were able to just do the fucking training, and the training itself was a lot. I would give up within a week or two of the 50-mile bike ride. And so to be able to sustain all of that for a year, that in itself is a huge feat of accomplishment. So for me, that's why I was like, I don't really care whether she wins the shit or not, because she's already done, like she's outdone me in anything that I could have ever done. So I'm props to her for going this far. So then you get to the competition, I remember that night, it was really, in the morning, it was so dark. It was freezing out there. Oh my God. Like I was not prepared for it to be that cold. Had I known it was going to be that cold in pinche Waco, Texas, I would have brought a jacket and a sweater and all this stuff, because I remember you and Monica having to like keep me warm because I was like, I was like freezing there. And so then you like were prepared. You had your drinks, you had your this, you had to like, it almost like you over prepared for everything because you went like and so then we waited. Everybody's starting to jump into this river. So the course was you have to jump into this river. You have to swim how many miles? 1.2 miles in this river. And with a bunch of other people. And then how many people were there? Like what, 2,000, 3,000?
I think the sign off was like almost close to 4,000.
4,000 people. And so they're all doing the exact same thing. And so you have to get into this river, swim all of that. Once you get to the end point, then you have to jog over to the bike, go get your bike, and then you get on that bike and then you take that for how long?
56 miles.
56 miles on a bike. And then once you go to 56 miles on a bike, and then after that, you're supposed to jog. And how long was the jog?
Half a marathon, 13.1.
13.1 miles. Okay. So already there. So, okay. So time comes in. You're about to get into the water. And I remember like I was there with my camera. I had my the little camera thing or whatever. And there were people that had already jumped into the river in your group. Your whole group that you trained with was there. And then I remember this one girl, she couldn't swim too far out because it was so cold, and she tried and she couldn't. And then they had to bring her back, and I was just like, man, I'm like, that's gotta be hard just to go that much and then to be brought back. So then you jump into the river, and I'm like recording you or whatever. And so then as you're swimming, I saw you stopping. First of all, what did you feel? What was in your head when you jumped into that water?
So I think the fear was already set. The temperature outside was like 40 and the water temp was 63. Yeah. And I felt like it was already set, like in my head.
Yeah.
And seeing the people go before me, like one of the guys that went before me, you could tell he just had like a tri body. He was lean and fit. Mm. So you knew like this wasn't his first rodeo. And I remember seeing him jump in and then seeing him come out. And I'm thinking to myself, if he looks like that, yeah. And he jumps in and he jumps out, I'm screwed. So I think already in my head, I already had it built like, I'm not going to be able to get past the water. It's too cold. People are jumping in, jumping out. I think I was already like mentally freaking out.
Yeah. So then you jumped in. And then
I jumped in, mm-hmm. And it was instantly like, yeah. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I remember doing this for like the first whatever meters it was, just to like kind of like warm up. And I remember like sticking my head in the water and just thinking like, oh, this is so cold. This is so cold. Like I was like, how am I going to get warmed up? And I was already in the wrong swimsuit, it wasn't even the right swimsuit. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to warm up. So I think like past the first, 100 yards or whatever, I think that's when you saw me stop and then flag the kayak person, and then seeing people like on there, and then seeing the guy in front of me, like I remember like my feet were going like in his direction when I was going onto the kayak, and I was kind of like, I'm sorry, my legs are touching you. And I remember him saying like, I just need to come down. I just need to just, be here for a moment. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm just like seeing like people freak out, and that was making me freak out. And I was cold, and mentally I just couldn't get over the fact that this is cold water and your body's not warming up. I couldn't get past that mental block. Yeah.
Yeah. And all the times that you've done the training, had you done it in cold water? It was all like room temp or like mild?
No, like that last week or so, I want to say, like, I remember one of my friends saying, come out with us. The water's going to be colder, just in case. And I remember like getting the water and thinking, fuck, this is cold.
Yeah.
Like, if this is cold, and I remember thinking like, this is cold, oh my God, and I can't warm up. But I remember thinking, oh, good thing Waco's going to be like warm and I don't have to deal with this shit.
Right. Big surprise. It was such a, yeah. So I remember Monica and I were walking, Monica, our cousin. So we were walking over because we were going to meet you where the other part was at for you to get out of the water. And we saw them pulling you out. And then I remember Monica was like, oh, girl, no. Oh, girl. And she was just like, and I was like, oh, shit. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a big one. I was like, breaking up with an asshole ain't nothing compared to what she's about to feel. So I was like, híjole. So I was like, okay. So I walked over. You got out of the water. You were walking up to me. And immediately, as soon as you walked up to me, you broke down and just started crying your eyes out. And I was like, okay. And I felt just as bad for you and just for the situation because I knew how much work you had put into that. And I was just like, it's not even that you didn't finish it, it's that you just stopped so early on in the game. And I think that was what was going to eat it. I was like, that's going to eat her up. That's going to eat her up. And so I was like, okay. So then I hugged you. We were all hugging or whatever. And then after that, I gave you didn't have any socks or you didn't have your shoes, right? You left your chanclas somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So so I took off my socks, or I gave you my socks so you had something to walk in, and I just used my shoes or whatever. And then we walked over and we went to the Jeep and got into the Jeep. And then after that, of course, we went to good old Whataburger and got a bunch of stuff at Whataburger. And then we went back to the hotel room. So after that, like, for some people, they wouldn't be able to like get past that, or they wouldn't be able to like pick themselves up and say, oh shit. And to go through all of that, a person's obviously going to feel like I failed or I'm a failure, like I didn't fail that. And, and I know you felt that way because you were talking about that. And in my head, I'm like, no, this bitch went through all that shit with us growing up. She was able to go to college, to put herself through college, got her master's. She built herself a great career. She's, she just bought her dream vehicle. It's like all these accomplishments in my head. I'm like thinking like, she's achieved so much. This is like, a little sip of something. Has nowhere near the amount of accomplishments that you've made in your life. And yet this one thing here. So I was like, oh God, I hope this one thing doesn't, keep her from trying to move forward or progress herself. So for people who may not know what that was like, what did you have to do to come out of that? Because I mean, here you are, you're on camera now, you're smiling, you're like, Corona, I'm here. Corona's great. I'm doing great in Corona. Corona's my best friend. So for a lot of people, they're like, well, she's still pretty optimistic, or she seems still put together, but going through something like that, that's got to be hard. It's not easy for someone to go through.
No.
So how did you work past that? Because I mean, I'm sure it still eats you up to some point. It does. Yeah. So it's not like it's gone away. It's still there. But how were you able to like still live with that and then move past that point?
A lot of cries. Definitely the first week. I was kind of resentful with running because when some of my practice runs before the Ironman, I would like run. And then on my last few miles, I would raise my hand up, raise my hands up mentally because I'm mentally picturing myself like running through the finish line. So I would do that a lot. So I had a lot of resentment with running. And I literally cried for the first week when running, like after my runs. I would like literally just stop in the middle of my run and just cry because I felt like a fucking failure. And literally for like the first week, I would run and cry, stop dead in my tracks while running and just cry. I cried out. And I did feel like a failure. I felt like I trained so hard, and I kept like comparing. I kept saying like, people go do Ironmans their first time and they do them like nothing, and then they go to the full and they do it like nothing. So I was comparing myself a lot, and like, how could they, like, why did this happen to me, blah blah blah. But I think at the end of the day, I just let it go. And like, I have coworkers who have done like half Ironmans, full Ironmans. They're like, oh, so like they were all like, oh, Irene's gonna come in with a medal and so like having to not, like not having the medal, and it just, I felt like a fucking failure. But I feel like at the end of the day, I just had to get over it. I still don't know if I will do another Ironman. I do like the training part of it. I loved it. It's awesome. And I still, run my mileage now, or I cycle. But I feel like, I tried it. It didn't work out. I still enjoy working out. I still do my miles. But I just learned to let it go. It was an experience. It was an awesome experience. And I felt like even though I failed at it, it was still fun. And I remember, Nano, like when I hugged you and Moni, that was, if you guys weren't there, I would have been like, oh my God. Yeah. Like, I'm so glad that you guys were there, because now, like, I remember like saying I failed. I felt like a failure. Yeah. But I was so happy that you and Moni were there. Yeah. Like,
yeah, I was I was still proud of you. Like, even now, like, as you talk about it, I'm so proud of you. Just the fact that you can go through that experience and still be like, but I'm still here, bitches. I'm still here. I'm still trying to get toilet paper at the grocery store like everybody else. So you're still here, and you're still pushing through it, and you're still working through stuff. And I think that everything that you've gone through, even though you are an optimistic person, even though you are someone who has, tries to be positive. We practice law of attraction, trying to manifest our desires and all this stuff, which we have for the most part. We've really done a lot of work in achieving those things, and we do very well for ourselves. I mean, in comparison to a lot of the people in our past and in our families who have not done so well, some people in our family don't like us because they're like, we're bougie, or we're the stuck up ones. But we're like, we just have higher expectations for ourselves. That's it. But we believe we can do more, and we do. We work hard to do more. So, but there are a lot of people who, they wouldn't be able to get through something like that, or they really would probably, at that point, that's the end of the road for them. And you are still able to get through that. And I think it's because we have a balance of like, it's great to be positive and optimistic, but sometimes it's not going to be easy. Sometimes it's going to hurt. It's going to be a bitch of pain to go through. And I think with all of the Corona stuff, I have a neighbor who, she had a breakdown a few days ago because and she tries to be a very positive person, but some people, they're just like, they're too positive. And it's almost like everything has to be perfect, and I'm going to be positive. And as long as everything's perfect and I'm positive all the time, life's going to be peachy. And the minute that something happens that you have no control over, that you're completely like sideswiped with, people like that can't handle it, and they don't handle it so well. And they burn, like they crash and burn real hard. And I think that that's the thing that I admire about you, and that's the thing that I appreciate about you, is that with everything that you've gone through and everything that you've overcome, you're still, you still sometimes fall flat on your face, but then you're like, well, at least, but at least I have an excuse to go to go get some work done or something. Like, it's like, you'll come up with a reason to look at it from a positive point of view. You'll find a reason to feel good about it. So what do you think is important for people, like, as far as being positive and like understanding the concept that life isn't perfect, but being positive is important, but how much of it is really authentic positivity versus toxic positivity, where you're like faking the positivity?
I will say that it's okay to cry, and it's okay to not always be positive, because we're human and we're gonna have those obstacles. And I feel like expressing your emotions, expressing how you feel, letting it all out, having a good cry, it just helps. It just helps make things a little easier. Yeah. And I feel like once you can let go and cry it all out, then you could be like, okay, what's the next thing? Yeah. There's times where, I try to be positive and my cheese will fall off my cracker, and I will, you could tell when I'm having one of those moments, or like, oh Lord, Irene's having one of her crazy moments. And I feel like, trying to stay positive, even when it gets really hard. is great. But I feel like, yeah, it's okay to let your emotions out and have a good cry.
So what are you the most proudest? What are you the most proud of in your life?
I think I'm most proud of, like, as a whole, like you and I, like our family. I feel like other family members saw us not getting far in life, and I feel like they had this perception, based on mom and how she is. I feel like it almost like they felt sorry for us, and they felt like we weren't going to get far. And I feel like, given the life circumstances that we've had, how we've grown up, and what we've been exposed to, I feel like, we didn't do so bad. There's still a lot that we have to learn. There's still a lot probably coming our way, but I feel like for the most part, we've done pretty good, and I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud of you now, and I feel like, we've done pretty well in our lives.
I remember when I hadn't seen you. You were like 11 or 12. I hadn't seen you in years, and so I saw you before puberty. So then I suddenly saw you after puberty, and you blossom into this woman, and I was like, "This is my sister, y'all. This is my sister." And at that time, it was more like, look how pretty she is. Look how this she is. And so I was like that. And then today, it's like, oh yeah, she's pretty, big fucking deal. For me, it's more like, but she's super intelligent, and like she will blow your ass away with everything that she's done. And I think today, what I'm proud of is the authentic success you are. Because in everything that you've achieved and done, there's so many little wins that it's like there's just no way. Like, even if one thing doesn't work out in your life, or you don't achieve one thing that you wanted to achieve, the amount of successes that you've had and wins that you've had overshadows anything that you will ever fail at. So in my opinion, it's like, well, yeah, she's pretty, a big whoop-de-doo, but she's an amazing person, no matter what, whether we're having like one of those fights that we tend to have every now and then, and you're like, whatever. But even with all of that, like, I still am so proud of you. And I think that you, if anything, I think one of the things I'm most proud of in my life is the fact that I got a chance to help you be who you are. That's one of the most proud things I am of in my life. So I want you to know that.
Thank you, Nano. Nano, really quick, I do want to say, because I feel like I need to say it, I want to say mad props to all those people who have done successful Ironmans, because that's hard. Yeah. So mad props to those people.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Cool. If you enjoyed this episode and want more, then like, share, and review my show on your favorite podcast listening platform. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and check out my website at www.fernandomarone.com for additional content, updates, articles, and more. Till next time, kiddos, and I hope you have yourselves a namaste.